You know where you are!
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 417. My name is Brando. With me, I got two co-hosts today. One, maybe he'll say his first word on the air. I don't know. You've gone wild. That's 3 words. I got Baby Brownstone with me. We'll see how long. He's a little congested today. We'll see how long that lasts. But he's got to learn about rock and roll. My wife, I swear to God, Snake, Sabo, and my other co-host, Chad Gervich, producer of the 80s metal documentary on Paramount that we spoke about with Jen and Gardner, my long-winded thing. My wife says to me, why don't you put on music for him to calm him down? And whatever reason, because I couldn't win Mozart, I couldn't win lullabies. I just said, hey, Alexa, put on 80s metal. And I Remember You came on. Oh, Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. So I Remember You came on. I'm not going to reenact it now this time. And he calmed down. So
really?
So anyway, it's so funny. My wife was like, I didn't exactly mean that music. Oh, this is the guitarist I'm interviewing on Monday. He's got to prepare for the interview. So
that's perfect.
That's my long-winded tie into welcoming you, Snake. How are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Thank you for taking the time out to speak with me.
I should thank you for the time out. You're going on tour tomorrow.
Yeah, I leave tomorrow morning.
The guy who made it happen, and we're going to get into the tour with Buck Cherry and where you're going and the cities. Chad Gervich, you're also a returning co-host.
Yeah, thanks, Brando.
Thank you for coming on, Chad, and making this happen, because a couple episodes ago, to talk about that awesome 80s documentary, chasing that 80s metal dream, and that's on Paramount Plus, the 3-part documentary. You know, I spoke about it originally with Vicky Hamilton, former Guns N' Roses manager. Awesome. She's been on the show a few times. And you were nice enough to reach out to me. It's a long, boring story. You were able to hook up me with Janet Gardner of Vixen, who was the only one in that documentary that had not been on this podcast, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
So, go ahead. So now you made Snake happen. The day off. I mean, I feel kind of, I don't know. I feel so guilty. You're taking the time out of your day off, Snake, and I got a baby here. I mean, it's not typical interview time for you, is it?
Well, no, it's like, look, you kind of live this thing every day, you know, and we take care of business every day, whether we're home or, you know, off the road or on the road. So to me, this is, you know, talking about something that is, I'm really, really humbled to be a part of. And I thought Chad and Tyler and everybody that was involved in the series did a really respectful and great job of getting into the history of the people that were being featured in a way that was really, again, respectful of their accomplishments, of mishaps, of you know, the ups and downs that everybody in this business goes through. And it's funny because a lot of people focus on that time period because it was really tumultuous during it and the aftermath of it. So it's really intriguing, you know, to a lot of people, like a lot of my friends and stuff like that are really intrigued by everything that we went through as a band and during that time period. And, you know, again, the aftermath of it, where it left a lot of people. And I'm very, very thankful that, you know, that I and we as a band, Skid Row, were able to come out of it and still be able to go out and play and create, and because that's what we do for a living, and we're allowed to do that because fans still want to come out and see the band and hear the music, and that's a very, very humbling thing for me and for us. I'm still astonished that I get to go on tour. Like, I'm leaving tomorrow, as we spoke of a little bit ago, and I feel that I need to make the most of all of that, because it really is. We treat it as a celebration of our complete history as a band. We've been together 36 years. We've been releasing music commercially for 34. And it really is something to even spew out those numbers, because that's a long time. You know, that's more than half my life. And you know, I'm proud of all of it as a whole. But of course, you know, for me, I certainly have some regrets throughout those 36 years, 37 years. But the best thing about it is that, you know, where we've landed and where we continue to go. So as they say, you know, everything that you went through got you here. And so I accept everything that we've been through, and the public's support and love for us, whether it was on a massive level or less than that. It's just amazing to be able to be recognized, and you know, to be able to affect people in a certain way with the music that you create. I'm still blown away when I look out at an audience and they're singing the lyrics to our songs, and that just, every night it gets me, man. Every night it gets me, because I'm the type of person that I very, very much realize how truly lucky I am, and we are. And I remember being, you know, absolutely penniless and broke and eating macaroni and cheese every night, but creating some of these songs, and those moments, like when we created I Remember You or something like that. And I see a person in the audience or people in the audience singing back the lyrics. It brings me back to when we created something from nothing. And the fact that it became and has become what it's become is, I can't make sense of it. It's really amazing to me. So I'm very, like I said, I'm very humbled and thankful for all of it.
Snake,
Thank you for that.
when you say, I listening to you, you guys, you and Rachel and Scotty have been together for 36 years. That is longer than most marriages last.
Oh, probably 90% of marriages.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, when you think about those 36 years, obviously you guys have had some amazing times. I'm guessing you've had, I mean, you guys, you know, I've heard stories from you. I'm sure you've had horrible times. You've been there for each other. You've probably hurt each other. If somebody were to say to you, give me relationship, and like, what have you learned about being in a relationship by being in a band that Brando and I and everyone else out there who aren't in bands can apply to our marriages?
You have to really have the ability to listen. It's so important to listen and to make every attempt possible to understand where the other person or other people are coming from. Like, what's the basis for their point of view, and to respect that. You have to respect it, because, you know, if you don't, then what's the point of being in business with them and forging these relationships? Music is an emotional expression. We all came together because we found commonality, not only in the music that we love, but that it was the truest form of expression for us as individuals. Whether we were socially awkward, or felt like outsiders, that we didn't fit in, and we couldn't maybe verbalize those particular feelings. I know that was the case for me. When I discovered the guitar, it became my voice. And it's still the case to this day. Thankfully, through the course of the years, I've become slightly more articulate, but than I was back then. But music is still like the true voice. And creating music and writing songs is a very selfish act, in a good way, because it means what you're saying and what you're writing is true to your heart and to your spirit. And we never wrote to an audience or for an audience. We wrote with the hopes that we would get an audience. And then after we did, we still maintained the same sort of viewpoint and attitude, because that was the purity and the honesty of the band. And we've maintained that throughout our careers, for better or for worse. But so that's how we express ourselves to this day. So in order, like, just the process of writing a song, you have to listen to the guy you're writing with. You have to hear what they're saying and respect it, and not just dismiss it. And we've never dismissed each other's ideas. We've all collaborated, and we would listen and attempt it, and if it didn't work, it didn't work. And sometimes when your ego comes into play, sometimes if you're the guy that's presenting the idea and it gets, I don't want to say shot down, that's harsh, but just doesn't work, doesn't fit in, and everybody feels it, like, you have kind of your dukes up a little bit. You're protective of it because of your ego. But it took us a long time, but we gradually would let our egos go. I mean, you have to, if anything's going to get accomplished. You have to within that moment, really, or else you're going to be at a stalemate. And there's been times, for sure, where we've gone back and forth because we both believed in a certain idea that differed from one another. But we were always respectful of one another. We were never like, oh, you're an asshole, because it never like that. It was always, well, I believe it should be this because of this, and the same argument on the other side. And you kind of you work through it. It's communication, but it's again, I think the most important things are being able to listen, and equally as important is just be respectful of what you're listening to.
I appreciate that, and that those words come with wisdom and years and experience, of course. And I always wondered, what it's like to be on that end of shooting a documentary. I'm fortunate. I've never done anything at the level of I Want to Rock like Chad has, but doing my own interviews and being on the other end that you are, and being on something that open. Do you look back at those times and being like, you know what, I wish I had a more mature head at this point? Or you kind of like, that's what it was, that's what made us who we were? Anything like looking back and certain relationships, even like with Rachel, do things change? Are they different now? I guess, how do you look back at when a documentary is laid out in front of you, your life is kind of laid out in front of you? How do you feel about that?
Well, as long as you're being truthful and you're being honest to the people who are putting the documentary together and to the camera, then there's no regrets. There's successes and failures in every aspect of everybody's lives. And we are no different. And, there's a lot of triumphs, but there's a lot of scars too. And that comes with it. That comes with, 36, 37 years of being together. So when I reflect back on that, when I'm doing something like this and I'm being asked a lot of questions, very, very good questions. People did their research really well. And again, going back to what I said earlier, it was done so respectfully that I didn't have a problem exposing myself of certain things that have happened in my life. And again, the good and the bad, there's playing in front of, 500,000 people in Poland. And there's, getting molested at a young age. That pretty much runs the gamut, and everything in between. And so I'm, whereas I wasn't an open book 10 years ago, I realized more so from being abused as a kid, and along with, being able to be proud of your success as well.
Mhm.
Because one of the things that occurred for me as a child growing up and well into Skid Row was that, number one, my silence of what I was going through personally and what I had gone through wasn't serving anybody well. That took a long time for me to figure it out.
Mhm.
And also accepting the fact that, you know what? You worked hard for this success. Enjoy it. Allow yourself to enjoy it, instead of saying and believing, which I did for a really, really long time, that I'm not deserving of any of this. And I felt guilty about it. I felt guilty for decades about whatever successes we had, and I personally had. And I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say that that still doesn't creep into my psyche.
Mhm.
But by and large, I've come to terms with it. And again, humility is a big part of my upbringing and my life and my outlook in general. It helps me keep things very much in perspective. That and it also allows me to celebrate all the good in my life. And that's really important, to have the friends and family that surround you who love you, and to be able to accept that love. That was a big issue with me, not being able to accept love and adoration or just goodwill. I was always so in such a depressive state internally that my heart, I wouldn't allow myself to believe that I was worthy of someone's caring or
You know,
love or anything like that.
and I'm going to throw this to Chad, but thank you for sharing that, because I'm appreciative that you mentioned that, because that maybe more than anything else in the documentary really resonated with me, because it's been labeled now, I think, imposter syndrome, but I think it's just another phrase of dealing with depression, because that's something I feel like I go through. I'm not worthy of, this guy I'm holding right now asleep in my arms. I'm not worthy of getting married. I'm not worthy of getting an interview. So many people tell me you're too grateful when you get interviews. Like you're too, and it's never blowing smoke, but it's really
I
like,
understand it
thank you,
completely.
Snake. Thank you so much for your time. I feel unworthy of that. But I never hit the level of success as you. I'm not a rock star. So Chad, when you heard that, do you find that story common within people you've interviewed? Or like, how did that make you feel when Snake said that? Like, here's one of your rock heroes saying that it was hard for him to enjoy the hits, the music he made, being out there in front of thousands and thousands of people. What were your thoughts as a fan and as a producer?
Oh my God, that's a great question.
It happens sometimes.
You know, I I'm a writer and I work on lots of different things, and I feel like that all the time. Um, and so on one hand, it was weirdly comforting, I
Yeah.
think, to hear that from somebody, especially from somebody who, like, I've loved this band. I mean, one of the great things about making this documentary was this is easily in my entire life, the thing I've been most excited and I'm a huge rock and a huge 80s metal fan. So doing this project was literally working with every band I fucking worshipped, you know, from high school to today. Like if you saw my running playlist, Vixen, Skid Row, Motley Crue, Wing, like it's the whole list. It's the whole thing. And so hearing that from Snake was comforting and I don't know, like this is gonna sound like corny and selfish, but also kind of like, oh my God, like I feel like one of my rock gods feels. That's amazing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And also,
And that's important to fans. That really is, Snake, for you to say that. And I mean, as fans, no, yeah, we're both in the industry, but as fans, they hear your heroes or other people, like people think money or fame or women solve everything. You know, the best thing I ever heard on, especially on this podcast, was Dave Navarro was like, nothing can replace trauma, you know, without treatment. So it's more.
It's very true. He's
So-
absolutely right. I mean,
So we appreciate rockers like you speaking up, because not everyone does.
well, here's the thing for me is that, like I said, I wasn't serving myself or anybody good by maintaining my silence, and I was almost, I couldn't stop myself from actually exposing myself for what I had been going through since a kid and some of the events that occurred to me at a young age. And it had just gotten internally worse. And the worse it got, the more I hid it and the more I created a certain outward character that could mask that stuff. And that was a big part of my being able to put this band together with Rachel and stuff like that, because I developed I don't know if you want to say an alter ego, but I was certainly suppressing all of the detrimental thoughts and some actions, and the not being outward about the things that I had been up against. You know, I mean, it's really it's very cathartic for me now to be able to talk about this stuff, to be able to not be silent anymore, and hopefully that encourages other people to not be silent and suffer in silence, if you will. I think that the biggest thing for me was actually opening up, and once that came out of my mouth, it scared the living shit out of me, because then it was real. Because I always kind of looked everything as like a third person, to be honest, and that way it didn't break my heart. You know, it didn't destroy me.
it happened to somebody else, not you, not me.
Exactly. And so when I finally came clean and started talking about it, you know, it took a long time, but the opposite actually started happening. I started healing, and you know, being able to be truthful about something like, oh, well, the guitar player from Skid Row, you know, he was molested when he's 12 years old. So maybe I can come out and talk about that, because I'm not alone. And unfortunately, I'm not alone.
Right.
But to realize that you're not alone is very, very helpful in getting help, and to start healing.
Snake, was there an incident, like what flipped the switch in you after keeping the secret about what happened to you as a kid and the depression that you fought for years? Like, was there a moment, an incident that flipped the switch in your head that you were like, that's it, I'm just going to say these words to my wife or Rachel or whoever you said it first to? What flipped the switch in you?
Well, I said it to one person who I really trusted at one point, and the person didn't betray me or anything like that, but it definitely changed the relationship. So then I was terrified of telling anybody again. And so it took a while. And what happened was in 1999, I started getting these panic and anxiety attacks, 3-4 a day, that were just absolutely debilitating. And I could feel it coming on, and I would get out of public view, whether I was in an airport or whether I was in a room full of people. I figured a way out, because I used to call it the black wave. I could feel it starting to happen, and I knew that it would really hit in like 15-20 minutes. So I better get out quick somewhere. So I had an escape plan. It was always in the back of my mind, because I was having these things 3-4 times a day. And then one night, my band was living at my house at the time in Jersey, and my front door was always open. My friends and whomever wanted to come over could always come over and, have a beer or a drink, whatever, whether I was there or not, I didn't care. So one night about 2:00 in the morning, a friend of mine was coming home from one of the clubs, and he's sober. And he just decided to stop over to the house and see if he saw the lights on. So he came in, and he discovered me in my closet in my bedroom having this massive panic and anxiety attack. And I was in a fetal position, and I was sobbing and yelling. And I had hidden myself in a corner of the closet with blankets and stuff, because I didn't want to alert the rest of the band members. And so that was the breaking point where I was found out. And then I was taken to a hospital, and they wanted to hold me for 72 hours. And they ended up putting me in a padded room with restraints, and on a bed that was right out of the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I said to the nurse, I go, are you more out of your mind than me by putting me in a room like this? Like, this is going to soothe what I'm going through? All you're doing is cementing the fact that I'm like in big trouble right now. This is not helping. And so I ran out. I left. I was like, screw this. And so, but now someone knew within my circle, and so we had to address it, because I was losing weight like crazy, and I was emaciated, and I was having these breakdowns, and almost like I don't want to say hallucinations, but it was really strange, my behavior, and I knew it, but I couldn't control it, and I didn't have any idea how to get help. And finally I did. But it was a very discouraging process, because back then in the late 90s, there wasn't a whole hell of a lot of research that had been done on mental health and mental illness or wellness. It was one of those things where I was brought up in a culture that you didn't talk about depression. You didn't, no one gets depressed. You're depressed. What do you got to be depressed about? And my response was, that's the problem. What do I have to be depressed about? I don't know. Can someone give me an answer? Can someone help here? And no one could help. And I always found it interesting. I'm one of those people that needs to know why about everything. Why is this happening? Why does this occur? Why haven't there been more attention put on this particular illness? And it is a physiological illness as much as anything else. But it's funny how, you break your leg and you go to a doctor, they fix it. You have diabetes, they treat it, they manage it. But you have a problem mentally with the most complex organ of your body. And we're supposed to be able to fix it on our own. Like, that's the thing that always astonished me, the irony of that. And so I saw a bunch of psychiatrists, and it was terrible. in New Jersey. Because they didn't know, they speak to you. They spoke to me for like 10 minutes, didn't get the big picture on things from me. How can you in 10 minutes? And prescribe me a cocktail of drugs. And sometimes they work for 3 months and then they'd stop. Sometimes they had an adverse effect. And I went through this numerous times, multiple times. And all it really did for me was it exasperated me and added to my depression, if you will, and my lack of hope for getting better. And then I'm also looking back on, reflecting back, I guess my past life. And I really regretted coming clean about everything because my life was literally falling apart. And I'm like, remember when, you were playing sold out arenas and on all these tours and, number one record and all this stuff. And now look at you, you're a mess, you're worthless. And I was able to, like I said before, when I always looked at it, I created something that was a third party to all this, and that no longer existed because once those words and actions were found out, it was real. It became real, and there was no way I could like really hide that. So I kind of really had to come clean to the band and those around me. Once we were figuring out what was going on, and it was a constant learning experience because again, the research and information that was at your disposal was not very much. It was pretty slim. And there wasn't a whole hell of a lot of reasons why this occurred. They spoke of the physiological aspect. They spoke of, like serotonin deficiency, dopamine deficiency, neurotransmitters misfiring, your DNA, what's happened on in the history of one or both sides of your family. And it seemed definitely some of those I was, checking the box on quite a few of those. But again, it was still in its infancy, it seemed to me, from the answers that I could gather and get. So that it was frustrating. In the aftermath of telling the band and my loved ones, the different reactions were, they varied, and some completely didn't understand. Some thought it was bullshit. That was the old school mentality. And I don't blame. Those are mostly like my, people in my family who were older than me and grew up in a different culture and a different belief system. And it's not their fault. They were uneducated as well as I was. So, as time went on, there were instances, there was couple suicide attempts that really, the second one was I'm glad I failed at those, because the second one was the one that was really it really kind of got me on the road to getting well, to managing this thing in the right way. And I think the thing that turned me around was, I was in the emergency room and they were working on me and doing what they could to get all the crap out of my system, and just I had been revived already, and so they're cleaning me out, I guess. And I heard my guitar player's wife crying outside of where they were working on me at. And that that changed everything. That moment was when I realized I'm actually responsible for causing that. And that's when I went, never again. I can't do that to somebody else. So that put me on the road, in which I'm still on, of, you know, of managing my mental illness, my depression, my, you know, my life really. And, you know, it's amazing that when it finally got through, that my actions had this sort of effect on somebody that I really cared about. These people, like, it's other people were having the same sort of thing because of something that I did. And that was heartbreaking. And I was like, if God forbid I would have went through with it, or it had been successful, if you will, if you could call it successful. But if I had actually passed away from it, like, I look back on this now, and there's so much life that I would have missed. I would have missed so much. And I'm so thankful to my family and my friends and you know, God, or your higher power, or however you want to view that. But I'm so thankful, because the life I've had since that moment, while it's, you know, everybody's life is ups and downs, man. And that's not to say I haven't had some breakdowns along the way, but the overall, the accumulation of all of it is something I never could have imagined how amazing it is. So I'm lucky, you know, again, humbled by whatever you want to call it, the divine intervention, if you will. And I just think that it's important to for people to know that again, goes back to don't suffer in silence. And there's you're not alone, and it's a message that is being told more and more and more, and by different people in different fields, different occupations, and the more people talk about that and put out that message, I think the more people it will resonate with more people, and then people can hopefully seek out the help that they so deserve.
Thank you,
Snake.
Snake, for sharing that. And sorry,
Sure.
Chad, just
No,
because
keep going.
one of the reasons why your story resonated with me so much, and I'm appreciative of your time today and being able to have this conversation, is because basically 10 years ago, my dad took his life. And throughout my 20s, I wanted to take my life and fought it off. I went to therapy, took medication, but it wasn't the first try that worked. It was just, I'm lucky that I found the right person that I was with for 12 years. But I share that story now because it's funny. I went to a friend's 40th birthday party just last Sunday, and they're my best friends, and I didn't speak to any of them for 2 years after it happened. So
Yeah.
it's hiding something, but it's getting something out where I can be hopefully talk to somebody who's thinking of that decision. And we're lucky we have you, because you can see what you could have lost, where not everyone does. People are
It's true. I'm so sorry
successful.
that happened, and that your family and everybody had to go through that. It's terrible. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. I mean, it just you look at it like a third person for the longest time. Wasn't sure how to do it, but I mean, it take years, but I wouldn't have gotten. I don't know if I would have met the right person or had my son. So it's just like there's a lot of life to live. And of
Yeah.
course, I wish me and my family didn't have to go through that. But I want to make sure he never goes through that. That
Sure,
I'm
yeah.
still fighting the good fight, because I'm not cured by any stretch of the imagination. I'm sure light years away from what I used to be. But again, hearing stories like yours, and a lot of the stories covered in I Want to Rock, because of course they're not all identical, but all had their bouts of depression. Seeing them fight to get through that, and where they are today, and in a happier place today where you're going to be on tour tomorrow to shift gears
Yeah.
a little bit, because I don't want to waste up too much of your time your last day off. But I do got to ask, well, because you could have easily taken a setback, because the first time I spoke with you, you were having neck surgery.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
guess I want to know how that's doing. And now you're living this life where you're going to go on tour with Buck Cherry, and, just tell me how you're feeling, and what,
The
what you look
surgery,
forward to. What are you looking forward to?
well, the surgery, I'm just looking forward to seeing everybody again and, getting back out in front of people. I love the Buck Cherry guys. They're great. They're a great
Yeah.
band to tour with. This is a second leg that we're doing with them, and we've got a couple more, it looks like, going into next year. But the surgery went great. I was back out on stage within less than 8 weeks, and I mean, I had the surgery first week of January, and I was on stage first week of March, and I don't know if I was supposed to be, but that's the way it works out. And I just been really, really lucky. Like things that didn't work for the longest time, that I just kind of adjusted myself around, are starting to work again. And it's really interesting relearning a bunch of stuff, mobility wise. We're making these two things work together again. It's frustrating, but it's funny. You do something your whole life, and I've had this condition for a really, really long time, and it just got slowly, progressively worse, until it was at the point where it was getting to the point, I should say, really close, where I just couldn't get through a show. So I had to do something. And luckily I found a really great doctor, and he did a wonderful job. And so now I'm refiguring things out with again, muscle memories and movements, and how you hold your guitar, and how you pick, and it's really interesting.
It's like
what
life. You just figure it out,
yeah,
or kind
man.
of
Yeah. And it's all in real time.
in real time. Right. Right.
Yeah. So but again, the joy is being able to go out there and play in front of people with guys that you really care about and love, and play music that you love. And so I say it every night on stage, but it's an amazing gift that we've been given.
Absolutely. Chad, it looks like you're chomping at the bit. I'm sorry I cut you off earlier.
No. I was like, this is the best and deepest rock and roll podcast that has ever been recorded. This is amazing. I did want to ask, like, you've obviously just recently started talking publicly about mental health and what's happened to you. And I'm wondering, like, while you may have just started speaking openly about your story and your health battles, have you been writing about it in your music all along? Like, knowing your story, are there songs we can go back to, and if we listen to them, we'll be like, oh my God, that's what he was talking about. That's the story he was telling.
Yeah. There's a song on our second record called In a Darkened Room. In fact, we wrote that in like 1991, I believe.
Yeah, I remember that.
So yeah, so that had my fingerprints all over it for sure. But I started deciding to slowly become more vocal about this stuff during the pandemic. I started doing this weekly thing with a local radio station out here, the Shark, or one of the DJs, Orlando, on there is a strong mental health advocate, and so we had discussions, and he had heard about certain things, I guess, and approached me. I was like, I'd love to do something like that. And so we did it for a really long time, until I think we both got really busy with traveling after the pandemic and stuff. And I also did some stuff for NAMI. I got involved with them. National Association on Mental Illness. I think the A stands for association, or National Advisory, I guess it is, on mental illness. Anyway, great organization, so many resources available. So I was more actively involved with them back then than I have been recently, for no other reason other than people get really, really busy. But it's something that I love being a part of, and I want to be. I would like to be in the future more involved and outgoing and vocal.
Yeah.
Well, you can always do that in my podcast, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I will because it's my podcast. I worked with that guy Orlando at another radio station at the time, WRCN, which is
Okay.
now a news station, and he tried to fight me.
Oh no!
Yeah, I mean, if you've never met me, I'm 5'6" and handicapped, and he's just like kind of like a muscle head guy, and like he got the morning show, he was talking down to me, and I said, "Don't talk down to me just because I'm handicapped," and he wanted to fight me. It got him fired,
Wow.
and that's why he's at the Shark. I guess he's been a good boy and behaving there. So I just think it's ironic that he's a big mental health guy, and
Well, I
he's
think
also a
that,
bully. So if you ever want to talk about mental health with a real, real
well,
conversation,
I tell you what, here's I'm sorry that happened and that was your experience.
I'm sure your experience is much different, of course.
Well, yeah, it is. But maybe, I mean, there's always a possibility that people can change and that they can get the help that they need. And I hope that aspect of his personality has been eradicated, because that's terrible.
Hopefully, I never in my life I put out, because I always try to be a smaller person, be the bigger person. And sometimes, you know what? Maybe I accidentally say a joke or don't mean to offend. Put my hand out and say, "Can we start over fresh? Don't
Yeah,
ever talk to me that way again."
right.
I know that's what he's just kept repeating. Don't ever talk to me that way again. And I just kept my hand. It's still obviously it sticks with me to this day. And it just
How
I
long
don't
ago
know.
was
I mean, yeah, a decade ago. I say a decade ago. People change. I know that. So
Well, I
hopefully
mean,
he's
I hope
changed.
so. I mean, the guy I know, and I haven't known him that long, but the guy I know, I would like to believe that he doesn't possess those characteristics anymore. I would
Well,
hope.
yeah.
Brando, for what it's worth, I would say one of my, I don't know if regrets is the right word, but I've never been in a real fight. And I'm always like, man, I want to throw a punch and I want to take a punch. So I'm saying this right here. If you want, you and I can get together and we can just fight each other.
I love it. I love
I'm
it.
down.
I love it. No, I have the Napoleon complex of just like, even though again I'm handicapped, I'm easily knocked downable. I will throw a I will defend a friend. I will defend myself,
Good for
and
you, man.
I'll get up. I might
Yeah.
need some assistance, but I'll get up. Anyway, on that note, I guess that combines a couple things, because I would be remiss if I didn't get any Guns N' Roses in here, because Duff talks about mental health. He's putting out music about mental health, and but back in the day they were known for fighting, and like causing trouble. So I guess I was wondering, because we spoke about your friendship with Duff last time. Any fun memories that you don't have to you don't have to rat anybody out, but any fun memories of touring with GNR perhaps you could talk
Well, it was
about?
always there was always a sense of this thing could explode at any moment. There was always that idea of you just didn't know what was going to happen from day to day. That was just the type of it was just the type of situation that it was back then. From my viewpoint, from where I was standing, they were great guys, still are. They were very kind to us. No rock star crap or anything like that. They were very, very welcoming. And I mean, Duff did a solo record back then.
Okay,
And
yeah.
he was gracious enough to ask me to play on it. And so after some of the shows that we were doing, he would book studio time, and he'd get done playing a 2.5-hour show, and get in a car and head over to the studio and record a solo record. And I was like, wow, man, like you live rock and roll, man. Like that, you live it. Like it is you. That's what you do. And I love that about him. And he, again, it was an amazing experience. We wouldn't get done till 5, 6 in the morning, and back then it's just the way it was. So I had a blast working with him, and Matt Sorum was involved in it, and Dizzy was involved in it, and I think Slash had come in at one point, but it was one of those experiences that I'm really proud to have been a part of. And having known, Duff the most out of everybody in that band, so proud of the man he's become. It's incredible who he is, but that's his heart and soul that came to fruition. The guy that he is now, and the guy that he's been for quite some time, and that he continues to be and to grow. And I love the fact that he's speaking out with regards to mental illness. He's got a huge platform, and he's using that for the right reasons. And I really applaud that. I have a great amount of respect. But we like I said, every day was the unknown, and that was exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time. But it was old school rock and roll, man.
I remember you were telling me that you didn't know about the St. Louis riot until like after you saw it on TV. So I mean, I can't even imagine. That's because I'm gonna be 40 in like a couple weeks, and I was just too young to have gone to that show. I was singing Muppet Babies at that time. So it's just but the one I wish I experienced. But I
Yeah,
guess
that
have
was
this.
rough.
Let me just ask this as like my final, and then Chad or whatever you want to ask. Because I guess I'm curious in knowing Duff. And by the way, you guys should go on like a speaking tour, Snake and Duff, like a motivational speaking tour.
Oh,
Because
that's very nice of you to say. Thank you.
I think it would do well. I think
I would
rockers
be all for that. I love being around him, and I consider him a dear friend. So yeah.
right on. So Duff and the rest of the current Guns N' Roses members put out a new song, and I want to ask you this as a songwriter. It was written a couple decades ago by Axl during the Chinese Democracy era, and it just has been shelved. It was never on anything. There are internet leaks that have been out, whatever. That's never official. But of course, the new band worked on it with Slash, with Duff, and they put it out. It's just kind of a fandom thing to talk about. Do you consider that a new song? I mean, because some fans are like, oh, it's not a new song, and they're getting all technical and nerdy about it. But I feel like once you write a piece of art, that's still always available to you in your tool chest. It doesn't matter when it comes. But I'm not a songwriter, so I'm just curious. Like if you had a Skid Row song that you wrote in the late 80s, early 90s, and you decided to put it on the next record with Eric, like how would that be a new Skid Row song? Would that be a revamped classic? Like, well, how do you look at that?
Oh, that's pretty interesting. I mean, their song is new to me, so
That's what I
mean,
tell people. It's new to them. Okay.
So I think that I think when you unless there was no changes whatsoever made to the song whatsoever, I think just by the fact that it's been recorded with Slash and Duff, and I have to imagine that there's changes in there somewhere along the way. That I mean, maybe the guts of it were written a long time ago, but I think it's could be considered a new song to the audience because no one's ever really heard it before. So
I agree.
and you know what? Not for nothing, but we've done stuff where there's a song on our new record that the riff, the song's called October Song. The riff has been around for I want to say 15 years.
Okay.
And it was just something that I always kind of played on acoustic guitar. And Scotty and Rachel always said, "Are you going to do something with that?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm stuck with it. I don't know." And then finally one day, we're at Rachel's house and we're getting ready to go in and write. And I go, "What do you want to work on today?" He goes, "That thing that you've been playing for the last 2 decades that you just played upstairs." And I heard,
Awesome.
and now I have an idea. And I'm like, "Oh, this is great." And so I'm really, really proud that something came to fruition out of this old idea.
Love it. Great answer. I love that.
I feel like for some reason, people, meaning audiences, want to think that when a piece of art, whether it's a song or a novel or a movie or a play, is created, the artist sits down and says, "Now I'm going to write this song," and that song comes out and it's finished and it's done. And then they move on to the next song and they write that and it's done. But I'm not a songwriter. I write stories in different forms. And in my experience, different things, everything has a very different gestational process that it goes through. And
Right.
there are some stories that you think of today, you write it as a script and it's done in 6 weeks. And then there are other ideas that you are playing with in your mind for years and years and years, and they go through drafts and drafts. I am a huge Stephen King fan, and Stephen King puts out a novel like every 6 months. And he doesn't finish a novel and then write the next novel and put it out. I mean, I can't speak for Stephen King, but I can only imagine that some of these novels he started a year ago and some of these novels he started 20 years ago, and they've gone through various things. And I would think, Snake, I mean, you tell me, but I would think it's kind of the same with the song, is every song has its own journey.
Oh, yes, especially for us. We've never been the guys that, "Oh, we just finished a song in 10 minutes. That's never happened with us. But I think everybody has different levels of being prolific. And a guy like Prince was able to write a song a day. Lennon and McCartney, whenever they went into a room to write, they finished the song that day. Whenever they finished the song, they start to finish, it was done. We've never been as lucky as that because we're not as talented as that. But the thing is that we sit there and we analyze everything about the song. We've gotten a little bit more freer, but we would agonize over one word. Agonize over one word. Because it meant that much to us. And I can remember being upstairs at Rachel's parents' house in this room we used to call the green room because it had green paneling on it. This is the 1986, and we'd be working on songs and we'd be there in silence for hours because we had no idea. This is 2 a.m, 3 a.m. We got to get up and go to work in a few hours. But it just was that important to us to find the right word that we both agreed on, or the right note, the right chord change, whatever it may be. It's one of those things where some people, that window is open longer and wider for ideas to pass through. And some of us aren't so fortunate. But that's okay. You work through it. You do it to your best of your ability.
Hey, Leonard and McCartney, they didn't write Monkey Business, okay? So that's you. That's you and Skid Row. Snake, thank you so much for coming on with me today. Safe travels. Good luck
The
with
pleasure's all mine,
the
guys.
tour.
Thank you for taking your time. I appreciate it.
Hey, it's all on this side. Like I said, I'm not worthy. I gotta go. I realize to myself that I am worthy. We're all worthy here. And Chad, just thank you so much. A friendship would come out of watching I Want to Rock on Paramount Plus. But yeah, any final any projects coming up since then? Because I know your main focus has been promoting the documentary, but I'm just curious if you have anything else going on.
Are you talking to me or to
Yeah,
Snake?
Chad. Yeah, you. Anything
Oh,
else going on?
well,
You're there
unfortunately,
too.
we're on strike now in Los Angeles.
So okay, nothing. All right.
So yeah, I had some projects we were getting ready to go out there and pitch, but they're on hold until after the strike. Hopefully that will be over soon, but it doesn't
I hope it is for you
doesn't
guys.
look like it.
All right. Well, keep working on Skid Row the musical and just keep us
Yes, yeah.
updated. Snake and Chad, thank you so much. Thanks to Baby Brownstone, made an appearance. My wife is home now, and he made it through another episode without really crying.
He
So
was awesome.
best co-host ever. And well,
Yeah.
Chad, you and Baby Brownstone. So so that
Well,
does
thank
it for
you
this.
for having me, Brando.
You got it. Anytime.
Thanks to both of you guys. I appreciate it. Chad, great to see you again as always.
Good to see you, Snake. I'll see you out here, I think in December, right?
Yeah, right. December 12th or 13th or something like that.
I think it's maybe I can't remember, the 8th or 12th. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I will be there. I am very excited.
Excellent.
I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, guys.
You got it. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. When will you see the next one? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.